How you doing? Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. This is Matt Javitt alongside Nikki Javitt for Passport Joy Travel Talk. Today, we are broadcasting part 2 of the Q&A with my buddy Mike Polder from Youngstown, Ohio. And we're there at Sam's Wedge Inn. We had a great time. This is the second part, so we are maybe a drink or two deeper into the conversation. And sometimes it gets a little bit loud in the bar, but overall, it should be pretty clear. And I hope you enjoy the conversation. We talk about a lot of things. We talk about cannabis laws in other countries. Did I keep up with American sports? We get into the ideas of if it would be possible to even do our trip without smartphones, some routines we brought home with us from our travels, and questions like that. A lot of fun questions that Mike prepared. And again, I really appreciate Mike taking the time to do that. We had a fun time in that conversation. If you're just getting caught up with our story, Nikki and I traveled for 800 days around the world and we visited 35 countries and over 100 cities. And this is our way to share that story with you in hopes that maybe to give you some advice to have a better trip, whether it's a weekend getaway, a long-term vacation, or if you're trying to plan something like we did, maybe there's some tips in here for long-term travel, whether it's 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever you might be dreaming of and trying to plan for. We're not professional travelers, but we did learn a lot on the journey. And we hope to continue the journey to other places and share those along the way. There's some tips in here that I'll put in the show notes, but for all of our episodes, you can go to passportjoy.com, click on the podcast link, and it has a list of all the episodes there and all the different cities and locations around the world that we've talked about on this podcast, and it give you a chance to click on the links, find the easy locations for some of the stuff that we talk about to help plan your trip. And also, if you're looking to understand all the places we did go to, the Journey So Far tab at the top of the page at passportjoy.com breaks it down month by month, country by country to all the places. Please pick up Nikki's book, Passport Joy, Reflections on Life, Love, and Other Stuff While We're Traveling the World. That's her memoirs before the journey and then while we traveled. It's an awesome book on Amazon. It's a lot of fun, and please check that out. And then also World Barbershop Adventures on YouTube. If you just YouTube that, World Barbershop Adventures. We have broadcast in over 20 cities around the world, and now we're in America doing episodes here as well, just in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and that is live. And that is where I get haircuts and shaves in different parts of the world, and then also show the cultural aspect with some video as well, and share that right there. And if you can, go to the partners page. If you hear our journey, we share some tips, and if you're looking at the ways that helped us on our travels, some of the best companies out there that helped make our journey so easy, go to the partners page at passportjoy.com. Again, it's passportjoy.com/partners. You'll see the list of all the different things that we used and some of the things we continue to use as we make our transition home. All right. Sign up for the newsletter if you want to continue to get tips, snippets, things that we're doing, and also highlights and other trips that we might have coming up that we might be able to discuss as well. Go to Passport Joy, just put your email in the box and press go, and you'll get those emails on a weekly basis. All right, let's get into this episode of Mike, and it picks up right off the bat as we just continue on. But this is Mike Polder interviewing Nikki and I at Sam's Wedge Inn in Youngstown, Ohio. Enjoy.
All right, next question. Me and Matt were involved in some good rivalries during our playing days in middle school. Matt, in your years of playing sports, does the Frankel AMS rivalry still hold up?
Absolutely. That rivalry will always live long in my mind. The football we were always dominated, but in basketball it was an even rivalry. So it's a true rivalry, because the football wasn't even a rivalry when you're getting pure time domination. But yeah, it lives up. It's up there, I think, with Duke, Carolina.
Good answer. This next one's for Nikki. Nikki, as a pharmacist, can you drink beer while on amoxicillin? I'm asking for a friend.
I don't feel comfortable answering this. Technically, there is no interaction. So yes, you can.
There we go. There we go. Another round over here.
Yes. Okay, let's move on to the second page here. If a couple wanted to do what you guys just did in the last 800 days of traveling, what would they do first?
Well, my advice would be, hopefully you know that you can travel together. Nick and I were lucky where we had been on several trips together, all around 10 to 12 days in different parts of the world. So we knew that we traveled well. And that's important because we met plenty of couples while we traveled that did not travel well together. And you could tell they were like eight days into their trip and they were already sick of each other. And it takes a lot. You got to be good communicators. There's a lot of qualities you got to have as a couple, because you can be a great couple through life, but some couples just don't travel well together because you have to overcome a lot of different things as you travel. There's going to be a lot of adversity during that period, so you got to be able to overcome it, and some people are better than others. So definitely take small trips before you take a big plunge.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Communication is definitely key when you're traveling. Like, if something's not working, just say it. I'm not here to give relationship advice or anything, but if you're going to go on something that's this long, you definitely have to know that you both are on the same page, which brings me to my next point. So this question for me is kind of difficult because there's so much that goes into, like, what would you do to, like, plan something like this, and, like, what would you do first? So it really depends on the couple. So I would say, for me personally, what I would do first and what we did is we sat down and we figured out, like, what are our goals? Because at first we were not on the same page. Now, Matt, in full disclosure, wanted to leave before I wanted to leave. And it was that I felt professionally that at that point I was not ready to leave my professional career. And budget-wise, although we could have gone, I didn't feel comfortable with where we sat. I had goals where I said, I want this certain thing paid off, or just a couple things where I was like, this is where I really want to be at. This is how much money I want to have in the bank before we leave. And once we got on that same page, we knew this was the timeline where we could make that happen. And these are the things that I wanted to have in my mind or on paper done. And then we figured out, okay, this can be done by this date and we can leave by that date. So I think that once you have that open dialogue and that conversation with each other and say, these are my goals, this is where I want to go, this is how long that I want to be gone for, and these are the things that we need to get in line and done. And once you map that all out and, like, visually see that, then you can get somewhere. And I think that's the first conversation that needs to be done. And I think that really is the first step that you need to do, is just plan that out and get on that same page with each other.
I think I could answer the first question that I asked today. I think if there was a movie played about you guys, Bradley Cooper, Lady Gaga.
There we go. There we go.
It just came to me.
Yeah. I'll take that.
All right.
I've seen Bradley Cooper one time in New York City, and the dude is gorgeous. So,
Matt, as a big Chappelle Show fan, what country were you in when you heard Charlie Murphy died?
honestly, I'd have to check the calendar. But I do remember hearing that news because I'm a big Joe Rogan listener as well. I'm pretty sure I heard it. I saw it on my Twitter feed first, and then I listened to Joe Rogan kind of reflect on it. And yeah, Charlie Murphy's the best, man. His stories are the greatest. But I do not know what country I was in.
Matt, this question is for you too. Did you keep up with American sports?
Yeah, I at a very high level, I would watch the standings and the scores from time to time. But I ended up picking up other sports along the way that I followed more intently because of whether it was a lot of rugby. I fell in love with rugby late in the deal, and in football or soccer, as we call it. I have a new passion and respect for the game because we traveled with the World Cup last summer, and then just being able to watch these athletes. They're amazing. The rugby athletes are, to me, phenomenal athletes, and something that I picked up. And then we've had a chance we did sumo wrestling, Muay Thai. We saw rugby in South Africa and Australia, cricket. Yeah, I'm a big cricket fan now because I got a new friend in Chris Gale, baseball in Japan. So we had a chance to see many sports, and I'm a huge sports nut. But yeah, it's weird because we think of American sports as being the sports around the world. It's not truly the case. Even when we went to go watch the Super Bowl, the first time we watched the Super Bowl was in South Africa. Could not find the game anywhere. Nobody was showing the game in South Africa. Nobody cared about the game in South Africa. And I ended up streaming it through my phone. And that's how we watched it in our little surf lodge that we were at. And the second time we were in Vietnam with my brother, and we went to a bar, and it was pretty packed in there. But you're talking about a city of 1.5 million people, and there were 60 people in this bar. And it's Monday morning at 6 a.m. So it wasn't that big of a deal to these people. So you get a new perspective on how important American sports are around the world. They're growing, but at the end of the day, soccer dominates the world, and rugby dominates the Oceania region, and there's a lot of other awesome sports out there. So I fell in love with those.
Nikki, you can maybe answer this question here. The last couple years in America, the marijuana situation has really developed and become quite common for medicinal purposes. What's the marijuana situation in other countries?
Well, the marijuana situation in other countries it's kind of similar to the United States. It just varies. So in the United States, like how it's legalized in certain areas of California, I think all of California, all of Colorado, Michigan, certain states, wherever, I don't know. I act like I know all these states. But in certain states, how it's legalized for medicinal versus recreational use, there's certain countries all over the world where it's the same. But in certain countries, it's not. I mean, there's certain countries where they'll chop your arm off if you use it. So, like when we flew into, I'll never forget this. When we flew into Indonesia, we were going to Bali specifically. We had to sign a card, like when you're on the airplane, it's like a customs card. And it essentially says, like, if you are smuggling any sort of drug, and it included marijuana, that you will get the death penalty. And I was thinking, oh my God, it's just marijuana. Like, that's literally insane. But it's a drug and it's illegal. So, obviously there's a wide range of penalties for it, whether it be a fine or whether it be jail time or the death penalty. But yeah, it's just like America. It's either legal or illegal.
Yeah, and it's actually, I like this question because as we traveled from the business standpoint, I would ask this a lot locally, like what are the cannabis laws here? And it varies widely because I remember being in Chile. In Chile, you can grow it, you can smoke it, but you can't sell it. And there was even head shops where they give you all the tools to grow it at home. But because the laws are so vague, they don't even know what to do yet. And I think that was that's what we heard a lot around the world was it's so early in the process that they're all trying to figure out, because a lot of these countries too, they're ripe to grow it. And if globally it continues to be a trend where it's used for medicinal purposes, they continue to have all the research on the benefits of it, you're going to see a lot of countries probably jumping all in to make it part of their farming process. We were just in New Zealand, and they're getting close to the final stages of what are they going to do to legalize it. But you're talking about green that can grow it endlessly. So there's some places already trying to position themselves to be able to grow the crop, and it's a benefit from it because as soon as it tips a certain way, some countries around the world are going to benefit greatly. But then we also have to have the import laws too. When you're talking about certain places like Canada, the countries that have already legalized it, they got to be able to import it. So it's super gray everywhere. But the reality is, weed smoked everywhere around the world. Everybody smokes it, and there's a need. But some countries, it's just not as common as other places.
The reality is that I don't know the exact number of years, but for 1,000 years, marijuana was used as medicine. It was medicine. And for the past, 70 years, it's now been illegal for some unknown reason. So, well, we know the real reason, but I'm not going to state it. So it's like, come on. We know it has medicinal benefits. It benefits many people. I've seen it work for people in the oncology field. It works for nausea. It works for vomiting. It works for people who have glaucoma. It works for people who have anxiety. It works for depression. It works for people who have pain. And so the thing is that it's big pharma. It's a lot of people that have their hand in the money jar that's like, listen, so I don't want to get all political about it, but there's a lot of people who could use it. Let's just put it this way. The bottom line is there are a lot of people who could use it who are going to suffer because they can't have it. And so that's a bad thing. So let's let these people who need it, that can really benefit from it, who are suffering from real things, have access to this, because it's not hurting anything. And we get it. We all have to acknowledge that, yes, it does. It impairs you. You shouldn't be driving on it. There's certain things that you shouldn't be doing it. Yes, you can smoke tons of it and it can impair you. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to regulate it. But there's other things that we've regulated. We've regulated not drinking and driving. So let's regulate not smoking marijuana and driving. But we have other issues too. Like there are people that are popping OxyContin and getting in a car and driving, popping on fentanyl patches and getting in a car and driving as well. So there's a lot of things that need to come into play, but we need to start working on stuff like that. So it's a thing that a lot of people need to get more passionate about, because it's a plant and it's very natural, and it's not like these chemicals and toxins that we're pumping in our body, and our livers are then breaking down and then ruining a lot of our stuff and, really, really hurting people.
One thing I've seen in the last 2 years is the CBD oil, and I don't know too much about it, but people are hyping it and touting it as being like as an extreme pain reliever and heals a lot of stuff. So, I mean, I have to do a lot of research on that, but I know that if it's something that can help you, that's really beneficial. Through your travels, is there ever a time when you guys really got crazy? The kids call it turnt. Have you ever gotten crazy or turnt or drank way too much and just really partook in the locals? Or, all right, here we go.
So my favorite stories when it comes to getting lit, as the kids say, turned lit. Well, there was the ones that stand out for me were Lisbon, Portugal. We were there in June in Lisbon. It's crazy. They got amazing festivals, and the people are on the streets. And there's Portugal Day, which is June, I think 10th or 11th. And there's St. Anthony's Day, which is June 13th, but it's celebrated on the 12th. And so this full week in Lisbon is just bananas. So yeah, I had a ton of fun there. I've got great friends there, and we had a blast. And that was we sold Jello shots off the side. It was just an amazing situation off the side of a balcony onto the main street. And I was using this bucket to bring the shots down. It was an amazing experience that we had with the locals, and it was just put us a part of the community. And it was just a blast. And then the other time that was an amazing memory is when we were in Kobe, Japan, and it was a weird situation where Nikki and I went out to a restaurant one night, and we met because of Nikki's different eating habits. The cook had to do like a special, because it was a steak and chicken place with not a lot of veggies. But Nikki was like, I'm okay. I don't want to really eat anything. And the guy was like, hold on, what do you want? In his broken English, because in Japan they don't speak much English at all, and they figured it out what to serve her, and they did a perfect, beautiful a la carte menu where she got everything she wanted. It was amazing. And then so the cook in that place ended up, the very next night, I went to a bar. Nikki was tired. I went to a bar by myself, and the cook from that place was a bartender at another local spot I just randomly stumbled upon, and it remembered me. But this guy spoke a little bit of English as well. Nobody else in this entire place spoke English. And these Japanese bars, they only seat about 8 or 10 people. But that was at about 10 o'clock I arrived. A few beers later, a few Japanese whiskeys later, I'm translating with people at the bar. My phone dies, so I can't translate any longer. And I end up getting very wasted that night. It turns where I don't know how I communicated for the next 2 hours, because I don't remember much of the night. I remember waking up the next morning and thinking, like, how did I get in my bed? So someday I'll go back to Kobe. I'll see these guys, and I'm going to say, what happened that night? Because I have no idea. And it was amazing. But it was amazing to be at a bar with 6 other guys hanging out, having a blast, and we did not speak the same language. Right. But we knew when to laugh, and we knew like they would tell stories. I could read their body language. I could understand certain things. I would answer the best way I could. To have that level, that type of experience is something I always remember. I'll remember what I can remember of it, but I just remember that night in Kobe, and I still ping these guys on Instagram and stuff. But that was an amazing night.
From the friends that I have that travel abroad, that go to different countries, whenever people see Americans, they always seem like they want to buy them a beer and kind of engage in that culture there. And they always say, like, no American has ever drank this many beers in this place. And I think they always try and like set people up for failure. But it's always a good time, especially in like Ireland and places like that. They always try and get you guys to be a little bit more crazy. But
what's crazy is as we travel, I'm a bourbon whiskey guy. So when I order that at bars around the world, you understand their pour system. I always thought a shot's a shot. Live in America, a shot is 45 to 50 ml, right? That's the typical shot. Yeah. What you don't realize in other parts of the world, they're much smaller. So we just came from Australia, New Zealand. It's 30. So basically, when they pour a whiskey drink, you're getting half of what we're used to. Because you go to a good bar in America, they're going to pour and they're going to give it a little bit extra to top it off if they're measuring it by hand. In those countries, in Australia, New Zealand, they measure everything. And so you're getting tiny, for me, a guy that drinks bourbon all the time, you're getting a tiny bit of liquor. So I would go in these places and we would drink if I would drink with the locals, whatever, they look at me like I'm some sort of like drunk because I can outdrink them, but it's because we're used to a different levels of pours and things like that. So that was a big difference. And then when you talk about the price that goes on top of that, it gets really expensive in other parts of the world where our bartenders can take care of you and it's not as expensive. And it's actually a luxury we have if you're a whiskey drinker. But if you're like a scotch or something that's more local to them, then you'd like their drinks probably better.
I got you. All right. Matt, you created a coffee table book. Can you describe how you came up with that idea?
Yeah, so it hasn't gone live yet, but the book is police photographs from around the world. I had a chance to photograph about 70 police officers in different cities around the world, and it naturally came about. We were in our first city, Santiago, Chile, and there was a policewoman on a horse. I took her photo. And then about a day or two later, there was a policeman with his dog, his canine. Took a photo of that gentleman. And then I passed a guy in our next city in Valparaiso, Chile. I passed a guy as I was walking to a cafe. I passed a police officer. I took his photo. And at that point, I told Nikki, I was like, if I can do this as we travel, because you take photos of police officers, I think it would be a cool thing to be able to share at some point. And it happened that we continue to see these cops everywhere. And I had a chance to photograph them along the way, and I think it's going to be a great book. And through the campaign to help to raise money, we didn't hit our goal, but from that process, I got an amazing amount of feedback from not only police chiefs in different areas, but also police psychiatrists, law enforcement psychiatrists that are willing to really support the campaign and buy into it because they think the book is really important for law enforcement officers to celebrate the uniform. So I'm absolutely going to do the book. It's something that's one of my goals this summer to complete. And I'm excited to get it in print because it's also going to help document our journey because it's going to have all the different cities around the world where these guys were taking photos.
Very good. Question for both you guys. Maybe Nikki can answer this one first because she didn't have a smartphone, but could you guys do this trip without smartphones?
I don't think that I could have done it without a smartphone because I used Matt half the time just to like figure out navigation, and I used my phone for my camera. So if I didn't have my phone, I would have had to have a camera. And if I didn't have Matt, I would have had to like use something to figure out navigation. But I can tell you that you don't need a phone plan. And so I did use Google Voice. So I transferred my old phone number over to Google Voice. They let you keep your phone number just so when people call you or you call someone, they're calling your old number. And when you call them, it doesn't look like a weird number. And then when I sign up for a new phone plan, I can just transfer my phone number over and it will stay with me. But I can FaceTime someone, I can FaceTime my family, and it acts just like a phone would. And then you can use Google Hangouts, and all you really need is Wi-Fi. But as far as a smartphone goes, I think you need a phone in general if you need like the functionality of like having apps or whatever, you know, like checking email, or you need at least a laptop. But navigation wise, like you definitely need to navigate. I mean, I don't know how you would get anywhere without having a navigation system. I mean, I would want to go places and Matt would be out working out or like going on a trek or something. And I'm like, oh God, how am I going to do this? Like, I don't even know how I'm going to get somewhere. So I'd try to pull up my GPS on my phone and it would kind of work, but I'd be like, reading the street signs and, they're in like a different language and I'm trying to memorize it. And I just make myself a nervous wreck because I literally have no clue how to get where I'm going to go. And, sometimes I'd just be like, screw it. I'm just not even going to go right now. I'd wait till Matt get home and I'd be like, hey, can I use your phone real quick? And look something up and then I'd finally go. Or I'd just go to somewhere where I already knew where it was. Or, it was just a pain in the butt sometimes. So GPS is like an absolute must. Absolute must. Unless you can speak to someone in a foreign language and like ask directions.
I totally agree. Google Maps literally, I think that if Google Maps was the only thing that we had, I think we could do it. Although communication with the accommodations though is something else, because when you're talking to Airbnb folks on a real-time basis and trying to check in, or if we were doing our volunteer stuff, you got to have a way to communicate to people for arrival times and stuff like that. So the reality is we're in the best time ever to travel. It's amazing between Airbnb, LinkedIn, Meetup, like all these different websites that we use, Workaway, Trusted House Sitters, like all this stuff that we use to do different things around the world. If this is the time, if ever, to travel and be able to see things, and we utilize all of them. And so without it, I'm not sure we definitely wouldn't have had the trip we had. I'm not sure we could have done it, period.
Now, you guys have been back in the States for a couple weeks now. Is there any routines that you brought home with you from your travels?
For me, the biggest thing that has changed is that before I left, I didn't make time to read, and now I make time to read books. And how I did that is during the day when I was traveling, I had an infinite amount of time if I didn't have an excursion planned or something like that. And a large majority of that would be because, I had time, I wasn't working and whatnot. And then, another part of my reading time was before I went to bed. And so, in these upcoming months when I transition and I go back to work, I'm not going to be able to just chill at work and read a book. So that will go away. But I have definitely continued before I go to bed, instead of trolling on my phone like I did before and I'm pulling up Instagram or Facebook or whatever, I have continued to read. And that is something that I really cherish and that I'm going to continue to do because I love to read books and I can't imagine my life without that.
Yeah, and I think probably one of the bigger things for me is the idea of just like staying present. I think these last 3 weeks at home, because we've been with different friends and family and we've been to a few cities now where we're just spending time with people. I think that the one thing that I learned while I was on the road is just appreciating each day. And the fact that because we would travel, we see all these awesome places, and you just want to, even though there's other cool places on the horizon, you always want to stay kind of present in that day, in that town, and that whatever you're doing in that moment, instead of thinking about how cool the next day was going to be. So I think I've gotten better at that, where I probably wasn't as good as that before we left. And I think that's kind of a routine where now I'm better at kind of looking at my phone less and staying with the people that I'm at and enjoying it, my patience.
When you guys were traveling, once someone in that country found out you guys were Americans, what was usually the first question they would ask you? Like, as soon as they found out you were Americans, they would they refer to as a like baseball team or Michael Jackson, or what was the first question they would ask you once they found out?
Yeah, well, they would ask like where. Then we would always say Chicago, because Indianapolis, nobody knows where Indianapolis is. So, and Nikki's from Chicago. So we'd say Chicago. And then they would try to relate to that in some fashion, whether it was like the common themes were like usually like Oprah or gangs. They said gangs a lot, or Al Capone, Home Alone. Like those are like things that mean Chicago to people around the world. But then after that, they would want to know, like, how do you feel about what you're experiencing here? Like, once they know you're American, then they want to know, like, hey, do you like our food? Do you like...
The number one question is what's your favorite food from where they lived? It was like they found out that you were foreign and you were there, and it was like, oh, what's your favorite food? And then you'd be like, oh, have you ever been to America? Well, do you like American food? And then they had never tried American food, or if they had, and they'd love to tell you like where in America they had been. And it was always always the same 3 places. It was California, it was New York, and then it was Chicago. It was like, or Niagara Falls. Well, yeah, it was like Niagara Falls. Sometimes you could sneak in the Las Vegas, but Las Vegas was less than what you would think, but it was like Niagara Falls. Like everyone was visiting Niagara Falls. The funniest thing is I have never been to Niagara Falls. I know Matt has been to Niagara Falls, but it was so funny because I'm like, and they're like, Niagara Falls, you know? And I'm like, no, I don't know because I've never been there. But they would always ask us about our favorite foods. And then I'd be like, what's your favorite American food? Pizza. Everyone would say pizza. I remember all the Indian kids that you would talk to in India, they would always be like, oh my God, I love pizza. And like everywhere in India, you would see Pizza Huts. And I'm like, if that's your version of pizza, I feel really sorry for you. Like I do, because like, come on, Pizza Hut does not do American pizza justice. Like, okay, Pizza Hut's good according to Matt, but all right.
All right, this question is for Matt. Matt, I know you got a couple tattoos. It's 2019. In the last 2 years, for some reason, face tattoos have become popular. Would you ever get a tattoo from the neck above?
No, so I keep it professional. This is something that I really don't talk about much, but I've probably been tatted over 30 times now. And so I've probably been 30 times in a chair. I actually got 4 tattoos while we traveled. I got Australia, Portugal, Thailand, and Croatia. So I keep it professional. Like I'm at the elbow, little lower than the elbow now. I'm like at the forearm and above. And and I'm always around the neck, but not on the neck, because I think once you go neck, you're making big life decisions. If you go neck or face tats, you got to either have like a creative job where you're never going to report to a boss, or or you're like an athlete or something, or your lottery, or you're a rock star or rapper. But so I'll probably never go neck or above, but I might go forearms. I got some ideas on some forearms, and so that might be my next big thing, is some forearm tats. We're getting another round here. That's what's going on here.
All right, this one is from my 6-year-old daughter, Marissa. Matt, what would your walk-up song be if you were a Major League Baseball player?
This is the greatest song. So, or the greatest question. So, and I was just at a Brewers game in Milwaukee this past week with my godson, and who just turned 21, Kobe, shout out. For me, it would be I said it. It's probably "You Gotta Chill," EPMD, old school rap, and it's kind of like my mentality a little bit, where just chill out. You gotta chill. So that'd probably be mine. You got one, Nick?
If you're a professional,
So you're an athlete. You're going to the plate. Here comes Nikki. Here she comes. What's your song?
Give it.
It's like a song you walk out to.
Slim Shady by Eminem.
Slim Shady.
I like Eminem.
She's an Eminem girl.
I like Eminem.
If it was my walk-up song, I'm gonna say probably got to be Beastie Boys.
Oh yeah.
Some sort of Beastie Boys song. Yeah, it could be Rhyming and Stealing, maybe Root Down, something Beastie Boys that get a little pep in my step. I don't know, but I do like You Got to Chill. I really admire a lot of the walk-up songs from these guys nowadays, because they're getting pretty creative and it's getting pretty out there. But it's a question that my daughter Marissa takes serious, because she looks into all the walk-up songs and she wants to know why those guys have picked that song. But well,
Is that it? Is that it?
that's it for the questions.
Cool. Well, thank you, Mike, so much, man, for preparing that. We had a fun time here at Sam's Wedge Inn here in Austintown, Ohio, and we look forward to maybe doing this again in the future at some point. All right, that is it for this episode. Thanks so much again for listening. We really appreciate it. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. This helps Nikki and I get in front of new travel listeners that might not be aware of our story. And if you're on Apple iTunes and you want to leave a review on the podcast, we would really appreciate that. That helps us a great deal as well. As always, I list out all the important links, everything we talked about today in the show notes. Today was obviously a different type of episode, but for all the podcasts, I list out notes and links to make your journey easier if you're thinking about going to Machu Picchu or doing a northern Italy road trip, or you thinking about going to Isle of Man. Those are the types of things that I share, and it makes it real easy for you to just click along there. So please go to the show notes at passportjoy.com under the podcast tab. It lists everything out there. And if you want to get a weekly update on the things that are going on as we transition back, and then also obviously some of the trips that we might be having in the near future, you can sign up for a weekly newsletter that comes out on Thursdays at passportjoy.com. Just put your email address in there, press go, and you'll get highlights of the things that we're going through. Grab Nikki's book on Amazon for your Kindle. It's called Passport Joy, Reflections on Life, Love, and Other Stuff While Traveling the World. It's an awesome book. She really opens up, and it's a lot of fun in that way. And go to YouTube to check out the World Barbershop Adventures. That's me in the barber chair from around the world. All right, we'll be back soon with a new episode. And until then, safe travels wherever you might be heading next.